Oh, Ronnie's here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got a
Disrupting
bit of noise pollution there.
So we
But
do have some contributions from the audience which we're going to address, but Jeremy first. Yeah, are you talking about sanctuaries, I think?
well, yeah, and I just on the efficiency point real quickly, it's interesting to me because I think most forms of activism have a catalyst, the content, and then the carryway, takeaway that you give to the person receiving the content. So yeah, when you contrast, and I think it's helpful to do this for all of our forms of activism is, because there's also direct versus indirect on the street. You have loads of people passing that might be influenced, and depending where someone's at, that could actually be more influential than having a conversation. I suppose it's possible. Likewise, school talks, you could record, share on social media, and also have that indirect, after effect too. I know for
Might
me,
even affect the teachers in the room as well, not just the
great
students.
point. Yeah, and then they go on to influence others, obviously, and as all of us can, I guess. Because I know I've graduated more towards the social media side of things, and specifically by supporting the local sanctuary. I've helped a number of sanctuaries over the years, but my local now is a Friend Farm Animal Sanctuary. And if anybody is near London, I highly encourage you to check it out. Obviously, it's a bit of a tricky time at the moment, but if you keep your eye on their page, you can see what they're doing out there. And for me, it's just, selfishly, it's great self-care because, I get out in nature, I get to spend time. I think as animal advocates, we oftentimes don't get to interact with other animals in any concrete way. If we do, it's possibly, over social media, and it may be more of the graphic stuff, not just seeing them as who they are as unique individuals, which to me is really the case for building rights, is just that individual unique personalities and those experiences that, are those interests that are protected by their rights. So I found it quite effective though from an outreach perspective too, because through short videos, I think we can quickly highlight their personalities, and that way, because it's not practicable for everyone to get to a sanctuary, especially now, but by sharing content on social media, I know that's what affected me the most. We talked about some of our main catalysts. I did the vegetarian thing, but when I was there, what nudged me to live vegan was seeing a separation of a mother from her son, for her to be used for her milk. And it wasn't graphic at all. And that's what I try to do through my videos, is to really try to, because I think we perhaps overly focus on logic as a movement. And I think there's a huge emotional component to our ethical decision-making that is often kind of swept to the side. And there's a great Reagan quote, that philosophy can, lead you to think basically, but emotion helps you drink it. That's paraphrasing. But that really rings true with me in my experiences. And that's why I gravitate towards sanctuaries. Plus, if you look at, we can start talking about subsidies and the rest of it. But I think to me, that's directly saving an animal when they're at sanctuary, because all those animals who are at sanctuary wouldn't exist, they would be killed otherwise. So that's a very fulfilling from that perspective too. So I could talk about sanctuaries all day though. Turkeys falling asleep on one's lap, cows, nestling into you and the rest of it. But Wendy, you started doing a podcast a while back, I believe. Have you and even had some recent guests who are joining us now?
Yeah, and I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things actually you were saying there, Jeremy, because I think you're so right in when you go to the sanctuaries, it's just so magical. It's a real magical experience to be around these individuals that you wouldn't perhaps normally get to meet in kind of ordinary life. It's a very different context that you're seeing them to what you would expect and what the public would expect. It's really magical, and I think it's real nourishment for your soul. And like you said, being out in fresh air, the physical work that you get to do, often shoveling shit, is heads up there, is really great. It's great to be out in nature and physical work, and it's really great for your own health and well-being, as well as obviously meeting individuals. That's something that I now intend to do much more consistently and regularly as part of my work as well. But coming back to something, because I'm going to talk about the podcast for a second, but something, the point that Roger and Tom were talking about earlier about that feeling pressured maybe to do the street stuff, the street outreach demos and protests. I think that's quite a good point, because over the years I've been involved in so many different forms of activism. So the stalls that I was talking about earlier, marches, sit-ins, die-ins. We even used to do die-ins dressed in costumes outside the Home Office, things like that. Demos outside fur shops and cosmetic shops, things like this. Vegan outreach, live export demos, leaflet drops, volunteering, rescues, things like that. And I've tried so many things, and there's always, it always comes back to me, and something that Brad mentioned as well, am I being efficient? Is this the best use of my time? And I think you can get sort of pressured, or not so much pressured, but almost think that this is the way it's done. This is the activism I have to do, otherwise I'm not really an activist. And I know that I've had this real battle over the last couple of years, in that I feel I'm trying to reassess, like, where is the best place to use my time and my resources and my capacity. And as part of my work as a coach, life and business coach, I was actually doing live interviews with entrepreneurs. And I found that I really, really loved it. I loved asking questions. I loved hearing people's stories and their experiences. And it just started to, there was a kind of seed planted in that I kind of was aware of podcasts. And I thought, well, maybe one day I could do a podcast. And then when I was reassessing my whole activism, I just suddenly thought, why can't I do a vegan podcast? So I just decided there and then, okay, I'm going to do it. And had no idea how that looked or what was going to happen, or had any kind of experience of actually setting up a podcast, but I just decided that was it. This was where I did have some kind of maybe affinity with speaking to people. So I just decided to do it. So I set up Thrive Vegan World with the view to kind of speaking to inspiring vegans and activists in and looking at how we thrive as individuals, as vegans, how we support each other as a community, and also how we build a strong movement for the rights of our fellow animals, really. And I know that a couple of you on here have already been guests. I know actually 3 of you have already been my guests. Thank you. Hi, Ronnie. Ronnie's just came out. Part 2 of Ronnie's was just out last week. I'm about to publish my next one today. But going back to the thing of the being pressured to do the activism that you see out there, I think for me, what I'm realizing more and more, it's about finding things that you're aligned with, things that suit you, things that you enjoy, things that you're good at. So it's about looking at your own skill set, looking at your own passions, what you're passionate about, what do you love to do, what are you good at, what's your skill set, how can you apply that into activism, where can you put that into advocating for our fellow animals. Another thing I love to do is write. So at the moment that's being expressed through social media posts, but I'm looking to further that and build my website and put blogs out there. So it's just, again, finding your own affinities and your own capacities, really. And if you're a quiet vegan, you know, like we were saying earlier, that every day there's probably an opportunity, even when people ask you about your dietary choices, you know, in this market. Or yesterday a woman came to my door. She was one of these people trying to get you to sign up for charities. It was a children's charity, and she noticed that I had a big cat tower in my house, and we started talking about cats. She'd rescued a cat, her cat had kittens, and I was saying you didn't get them neutered. It started a whole conversation and went into veganism, and she was asking me so many questions. We had a great conversation just on the doorstep. And it just highlights, again, as some of the others have said, like every day there are opportunities just to even speak to people in your world, your friends and family. Sometimes they're the harder people, to be fair. But even people you come across in the restaurants or at the supermarket, check out, you know, like Roger did with the milk. It's just looking for those opportunities and always having that awareness that, and it's about being non-confrontational as well. It's not about going, yeah, you're all wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourselves for living as you are, and I've seen the light, and being self-righteous. It's just about being open and non-confrontational and ready to have like a good conversation with someone. So yeah, and something I know Ronnie's very spoken to me about on the podcast and on the show as well, is even if the one thing you could do is, if you're quiet and you don't feel like talking, is you can deliver leaflets. I've done lots of leaflet drops. You can do that with a friend. You know, you can literally alternate doors up one side of a street or take opposite sides of a street. And it sounds really simple, but it's something that you can do if you don't feel inclined to speak to people. Can you write letters to your MPs? Can you get involved with your local councillor in what's going on with issues around other animals there? You know, there's so many different ways. It doesn't have to be out on the street, because some people are not drawn to that and they might find that quite scary and quite overwhelming. But there's so many different ways, things in the background of different organisations, admin work, you know. So I just would love to speak to those people who feel that they're not aligned with what they see as activism. There may be other ways to do it.